So as the Mexico sequence comes to an end, we have a nice transition into the opening titles, which obviously are a nice Bond tradition. They've always been there for all of the films, so nothing new there. The good news again is that Daniel Kleinman again is back after his successful titles with Skyfall. Why he wasn't used for Quantum of Solace, I do not know, but luckily he is back for this film. So the song itself, obviously Sam Smith's title track, Writings on the Wall, did come in for some criticism quite early on, saying it wasn't a Bond tune, you couldn't sing along to it, all sorts of criticism were fired at it, particularly off the back of Adele's Skyfall, which had rave reviews. I think people were expecting something along the same lines, which didn't happen. The good news was, obviously, it went on to become the first James Bond theme #1 in the UK, and no doubt helped the promotion of the film in the run-up to release. But I think, and I've already stated this in my initial thoughts, that the title song does take on a brand new kind of... you appreciate it a lot more once you've seen the titles, and the song does fit in quite nicely there. So that was a treat. So the song, much better, given the context of the titles. And I love the imagery in the opening titles. The whole octopus idea fits in really well. And you get the idea that there's some things from previous films mentioned and referenced, like the two falling bodies, feels very much like Bond and Camille in Quantum of Solace. And obviously we get similar kind of things appearing throughout those titles. And I like the idea that the octopus is looming over all of these events throughout the opening titles, which is obviously the theme of the film, whereby the Blofeld lets Bond know that he is responsible for everything that's gone badly in Bond's life for the last 4 films. So I like the shadowing of the octopus over all of the events that have happened. For instance, an octopus kind of crawling its way around the two figures, which again looks like it's referencing Skyfall, like Bond and Severine. I forgot her name there. Bond and Severine in the shower, it looks like, again, the octopus tentacles are surrounding them. And the octopus grabbing onto the trigger of the gun and firing. Again, it all looks like Spectre has been involved and fits it all in nicely. Then we have, obviously, the references to the previous films. So we see all the dead figures in from Bond's past featuring again, which fits in quite nicely. And again, the song comes into its own there and fits in nicely with the imagery. Obviously, Kleinman has produced that and fitted it into the song really well there, and again makes the song feel much more a part of the film. And in that way, I think that may be a reference to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which obviously this film takes strong kind of ideas from. And On Her Majesty's Secret Service, as I mentioned in my favourite pre-titles, opening titles video, obviously references the previous films to fit them in, makes the audience aware that it is the same Bond, he has experienced the same stories. In this case, it's used obviously to link all of Craig's films together. We haven't had a change of actor, it's just fitting it all in nicely there. Obviously there are elements of tentacle porn, some people have referenced, but grow up. Yeah, it all fits into the film quite nicely there. I'm not sure what to make of the topless figure of Daniel Craig. I think that's the first for the pre-titles, really, is the topless figure of Bond appearing. I'm not sure of the relevance of that and why it was necessary, but there we go. But everything else I really quite liked, with the octopus motif appearing throughout. The big debate is the Spectre logo an octopus, or is it a Spectre? Obviously it was made to be an octopus in the original films when Spectre appeared, but it does look more ghoulish, more Spectre-like on the ring in this film. But each their own. I think it fits in well, whatever. So that, like I say, did work really well. And obviously the tagline writings on the wall fits in later on in the film, when we see all those names on the memorial board at MI6 with James Bond's name scrawled on it. So that was the opening titles, and then we move on to the first of the London sequences. We keep returning back to London. As with the old films, you always get snippets of the MI6 staff and their reactions during the mission every so often. More so in recent years that they've been getting more involved in the films. So we see Bond return from his Mexico assignment, getting a bollocking from M, which is a nice callback to the previous films again. Again, linked very nicely with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where Bond threatens to quit the service completely because M won't sanction him to follow Blofeld and try and find where he's gone. So there's a nice little rollicking there, and Bond again gets grounded, effectively gets suspended from the service, although doesn't actually quit himself. And then we meet Max Denby for the first time, or C. So we get the first of the jokes about what C might actually stand for in relation to Max Denby, which got a few laughs from the audience. And then we have nice interplay between the MI6 staff and Bond, and these are, I feel, one of the highlights of the film, the nice interplay between Moneypenny and Q with Bond. So first we have a bit of exposition. Moneypenny gives Bond some stuff from Skyfall, which obviously details his past and again links quite nicely into the theme of the film. Gives an idea that he was raised once his parents had died by a guardian, although the camera doesn't really kind of linger too much on that image. We do get the first image of Bond with his guardian, Oberhauser, with Franz's face conveniently burnt off. Again, some foreshadowing there to denote that we're not meant to know who he is yet. Then we obviously get the reveal that Bond was actually on an assignment set by a dead old M, which he reveals to Moneypenny, and obviously sets up why he was in Mexico in the first place, chasing the lead that he was following there, Sciarra. The only disappointing thing is that it was nice to see a cameo from Judi Dench. Obviously that was kept well hidden. I don't think anyone was expecting that. But it was kind of disappointing that we didn't make more of it, because there could have been more revealed. Why has M sent him on this mission? Why has she not revealed anything else regarding this Sciarra, apart from to just go kill him? I would like a few more answers if I were Bond, and why I need to attend the funeral. It seems to me that M knows something that she's not letting on to Bond, which might be useful for him just to be aware of at the very least. Unless there is more details that aren't shown to us. Maybe that's just a snippet from the video, the more full-length video that Bond obtains. Do like the use of his flat again. First time since Live and Let Die, I think, when again Moneypenny visits with M to give him details of his next assignment. So it was nice to see his penthouse there. And it's a very typical house based on a spy who doesn't spend much time at home, with obviously windows, pictures not hanging up on the wall, just leaning up against it. It just gives you the feel that it is an unused house, really, because he doesn't spend much time there. So then we have the nice scenes with Q, and these do work really well. Obviously, we have the general exposition by Tanner first of all. That's all his role in the films, the Daniel Craig films, seems to be. I'd like to see more made of him. Now, one thing I will be looking at is try to look at the leaked script and see the differences. I've already seen kind of differences detailed, and one of them was to make Tanner a bad guy, which would have really made it more interesting. I would have personally liked to see that, a mole within MI6. a Spectre mole other than Max Denby. And Tanner would have fit that role quite nicely because he's kind of blended into the background. You wouldn't really notice he's there. He isn't the most worthwhile character. He doesn't really have much to add. So it would have been nice to have a character blended into the background who then takes to the foreground and becomes a Spectre mole. But alas, they changed those details. Avoiding too much going on, I think, was the main issue. But he gives the exposition, obviously tells the audience that MI6 is due for demolition. That might be useful later on. And then takes a boat with Bond to Q's workshop, his hideout from the goings-on in MI6 and MI5 as of late. So we get a nice snippet. It would be nice maybe just to see some previous gadgets, which would link it quite nicely in with the previous films, which we don't really have had many references so far with respect to that. Maybe on purpose. Maybe they are accepting that this is a new timeline and they're going their own way and just purely referencing in roundabout ways the other films. But it would be nice just to see some things a bit like Die Another Day, but maybe not so overkill. Just a few references to previous missions. But obviously we get the nanobots, or whatever they're called, nanoblood, smart blood, pumped into Bond, which again has come into some criticism, mainly saying that it's very similar to Casino Royale, where they give him that implant. But in my mind, an implant can be taken out, as we witnessed, and it didn't really feed the vitals, because it seemed to me that he had to put a needle in to send information to MI6, whereas the blood seems to send the information straight away. I did read something today though from Reddit which I did agree with, which is it seems a bit silly to put smart blood into a secret agent in a system that could very easily be hacked. As we've seen in Skyfall, MI6 isn't impenetrable, so it does seem a bit silly that a system that can be hacked, you could then find this secret agent anywhere in the world and use that information to hunt him down. So it's not the best plan. One of my bugbears of the films as of late is maybe too much reliance on obviously mobile phones and contacting back to London and getting help that way. The older films had the advantage where he was more on his own, obviously due to the lack of technology that was around. Which I suppose is a natural progression, and I would imagine that actual spies are no doubt contacting back to base, but hopefully you'd think in a more confidential way rather than just relying on mobile phones. So the Q scene, obviously then we have the build up to the car, which we've seen in the trailers, but the lovely twist is the fact that it's not for Bond after all, because he's been grounded. It's been transferred to 009 instead. We get a nice reference, the first of the Craig era, I think, to another 00 agent within the 00 section. So that was quite nice. Nice callback to the previous films where M was always threatening to replace Bond with 008 and things like that. So it does give you a wider picture of the whole department. There are other agents to hand. So obviously Bond gets his watch. Again, a bit of a bugbear. I did mention this, I think, in one of my news videos where I said I'd hoped that line didn't appear in the actual film itself, where he actually kind of holds the watch quite awkwardly and signposts the fact it's an Omega watch. But it works again as a nice reference to the fact that they are a bit more toned down on the gadgets, which again was a bit of a bugbear of mine where I'd hoped they'd tone down on that a little bit. But then Q then immediately mentions that the alarm's quite loud, if you know what I mean, which obviously Bond gives the knowing look that yes, actually this watch does have something up his sleeve. And it's quite nice that we don't have that revealed. It comes into play later on in the film. Obviously we get the callback to the DB5 as well, which looks to be in quite a state of disrepair. And as we know at the end when he gets his DB5 back, does seem like quite a quick turnaround from the state we see it in to then suddenly the car is ready to drive away in a perfect, pristine condition. Obviously we have no indicator of how long the time period is really, but I wouldn't say it's that long to get that car up to speed, particularly of everything that's going on within the MI6 department. I think they'd have other things to worry about other than getting a DB5 up to speed. But there we go. It's filmmaking. They are allowed a license here and there, dramatic license. So we then have the smart blood mentioned, and obviously that's going to cause a problem for Bond. He wants to disappear and go off to Rome to attend the funeral. So again, we have that nice interplay. He'll be offline for 24 hours. A look from Craig. 48 hours. And then a nice little smirk just to know that Q is on his side, if very reluctantly. And one of the lines that got the best laugh in the showings that I went to was the postcard line. And lots of Q's lines got a good laugh throughout the film. It's good to see that his character is being used in a similar vein to the previous films as well, with a bit of comic relief here and there. And his character is very well suited for that, and Ben Whishaw works that part very well. So before Bond jets off to Rome, we just have the image of Q opening up the doors to reveal the Aston Martin, which was there the day before, and obviously it's disappeared. And there's just a nice champagne cooler there as a kind of parting gift from Bond. Again, that's come into criticism. Again, people are reading too much into these Bond films. How the security is pretty lax in the Q branch department if Bond can get in and steal a car. But it's Bond. We'll let him off. We'll assume he can do that and get past their safeguards. And obviously if it's someone within the department, you'd think they could get past those procedures. And we obviously have Moneypenny receiving her lilies, obviously foreshadowing the funeral that Bond is about to attend, and then giving her a phone which she's going to contact her on. Obviously we are assuming it's a non-departmental phone, it's an old-fashioned phone, so perhaps harder to track, even though C doesn't seem to have any problems with that respect later on. Then obviously you have I like how we see the department on an everyday basis, where M comes in the morning, Moneypenny's there to greet him, and then we have the nice line, "It's not your birthday, is it?" "No, sir." And then under her breath, "That was last week." It just works really well, shows that they've been working together for a while, and works together to show the department is an everyday kind of office environment, in some cases outside the more crazy world of Bond's adventures. So that was the early London sequences. Then we have a Bond jetting off to Rome, so I'll detail that in another video, because this one's getting on a bit now. I'll detail the Rome sequences later on this week, all being well. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've agreed with my thoughts. So far, the film up to this point I think is really good. It does have its flaws, which come on later on, but these early opening scenes, the Mexico sequence in particular, but the London scenes, which generally slow down the film in most Bond films, because obviously it's necessary exposition. They have enough comedy and enough nice interaction between M, Moneypenny and Q. They all have their own little bits, very typical of a modern film early on, with Bond getting given his gadgets and his orders and his interplay with Moneypenny. Just done a different way, and they put their own little twist on things, and it does work really well. So, like I say, next we'll look at the Rome sequence, which I'll hopefully get to you later on this week, and I'll give my thoughts on the car chase and the Monica Bellucci scenes. So, thank you for watching.